What's happening, guys? It's Nick from S2 Strategic Defense, and in this video, we're going to be answering some common questions that I get from newcomers to the concealed carry lifestyle. Stay tuned. So some of you guys might know that my team and I run an online training course for the Texas LTC, and because of that, we get a chance to interact with all kinds of people with different types of backgrounds. Some folks that take that course might have a lifetime worth of experience with firearms, right? Maybe they already own some, maybe they grew up in a household that has some, maybe they've been on range with friends or family members or loved ones. And so I don't have to worry too much about them. But what we've seen in the past couple years is that we're getting a lot of newcomers, people who've never touched a firearm, they've never done any training, and so they always have a lot of different types of questions. And so in this video, I'm gonna answer some of those common questions, and hopefully that'll help you guys out. So one of the most common questions that I get is this: hey Nick, I'm about to purchase my very first firearm, which one should I buy? And the truth is, I don't know. And if you ask 10 different people, you're gonna get 100 different opinions. The fact remains that there's tens of thousands of different models that are on the market that you can select from. Revolvers, striker fire, hammer fire, single action, double action, small, big, medium, expensive, cheap, somewhere in the middle, all kinds of variables that you have to kind of sift through to find the right one for you. Then we have to keep you in mind. What's your lifestyle like? What's your anatomy like? Do you have small hands, big hands, long fingers, small palms, big palms, chubby fingers? I don't know. There's all kinds of variables that you could possibly have. So you have to keep that in mind. So there's really no magic pill. There's not a perfect firearm. There might be one that's perfect for me, but maybe a terrible choice for you, okay? So don't ever go by somebody else's opinion. Certainly you can read online and see what's reputable, what people are having good luck with, but ultimately, you're gonna have to go do some test driving for yourself. Now that being said, there's a few things that I can tell you to help you select a proper firearm for yourself, okay? Number one, set a budget. And when I say budget, the firearm, the holster, the ammo, that's one part of the budget. The second part of the budget is training budget, right? I can take a $200 gun and give it to somebody who's very well trained and they're gonna do just fine. I could take a $10,000 gun and give it to somebody who's never trained and they're still gonna suck, right? Okay, so ownership and price tag does not equate to skill. Keep that in mind. Now, to kind of have a good ballpark, normally the 450 to 750 ballpark usually gets you in a pretty reputable gun, all right? It might get you into a Glock or a Smith & Wesson or a SIG or something like that. Something that's been around, kind of tried and true. There's a lot of accessories out there. There's kind of a demand out there, that kind of thing. If you buy a firearm that's like the $200, $300, it might work, it might not, it might be really kind of clumsy to use. You know, the first time you're gonna start training with it, you're gonna realize that maybe this isn't a good choice, now I gotta go buy something else, that kind of thing. And so stick in that 450 to 750 ballpark, you should be fine. You don't have to get into the $7,500 Wilson Combat custom trigger, you know, all kinds of stuff, right? You just don't need it right now. Okay, so have a good budget, not only for the purchase, but also for training. So that's the first question. So there are some qualifiers that I can give you here. Budget's one of them. Second one is fitment. Okay, when I say fitment, first thing I'm taking a look at is how does that gun fit in my hand? Okay, this gun fits really well in my hand, right? I can get a good grip on this thing, and if you guys have followed any of my Dryfire training stuff or any of my range videos, you'll know that I always say that the grip is the foundation of all firearm skills, okay? If the grip is compromised, everything else is gonna get compromised. The grip is good, you got a fighting chance for everything else. So you can kind of see that this one fits my hand pretty well, right? If I take a different firearm, you can see that this one does not, right? My fingers are off of this thing, so for me to make this work for me, I might have to get an extended magazine, right? And be able to get a good grip on it. It's got a short slide. If I let that slide forward, you notice that my thumb is almost right at the muzzle end. It's still in a safe place, but a little bit too uncomfortable for me, right? And so usually the small guns for me, kind of a no-go, but that doesn't mean that's a no-go for you. I've let plenty of people with smaller hands fire this gun, and they love this thing. Okay, they're like, man, this thing fits so good, it feels so good. Great. For me, it's just not my number one choice, okay? So, how does it fit? Second thing I want you to take a look at when it comes to the fitment aspect of it is, can you operate all of the features of the firearm, okay? If it has a safety, like a thumb safety, can you easily get to that, right? Can you push it down or push it in or whatever the system and style is? Can you operate that well, okay? Second thing that I want you to take a look at is the magazine release. This is one that catches people up all of the time, all right? If you can't insert and release that magazine without having to get your second hand involved and find that button and I can't get to it and that kind of stuff, it's probably not a good choice for you. So can you operate that magazine release button easily? Usually with your thumb, okay? Give you a quick story. I like HK guns. I think they're a great gun, okay? But HK makes the magazine release as a back part of their trigger guard, okay? And I can never reach that with my thumb. So ultimately, I have to take my trigger finger off the trigger and then be able to try and find it. But because I'm squeezing the gun so hard, I can never get my finger on it, okay? So that's just not a good gun for me. I still like the gun. It's a quality gun, just not the right one for me, okay? Okay, so that's something you could take a look into. Can you operate the slide without having to get into a jiu-jitsu match? I've seen plenty of people who purchase firearms or renting firearms and they're just, I can't get it. And it looks like halfway and not the other half. And sure, I can train some of that out of you and just kind of get you more familiar with it. But there's people who have arthritis. They got, injuries to their fingers. They got bad wrists. They got all kinds of things going on. And so they're never going to be able to do this properly. Okay, so that's something that you have to keep in mind. One that really sticks out and nobody ever really talks about is this one, is the slide lock lever that you'll catch on the top of the frame and the bottom of the slide, right? It's right here. Ultimately, its job is to either lock the slide open or release it forward, okay? And so if you can lock it open, that's great. A lot of people have a hard time trying to release it, right? They're using their thumbs, their elbow dropping, they're doing all kinds of silly stuff and they can't get it, okay? So you want to be able to release that without having to get into a fight there. Next one is the trigger itself, okay? Make sure that when you press the trigger, you can do so without influencing the attitude of the gun, because that's about accuracy, right? If you have a trigger press that's crap and a trigger that you're really fighting with every single time because it's too long of a travel or any of that kind of stuff, and you're pulling the gun right or you're pushing the gun left and doing all kinds of funny stuff, doesn't matter how great the gun is, you're not going to shoot it well, okay? So make sure that you have a trigger that you can press without influencing the front of the gun, okay? Okay, so once you have all of those things, the grip is good, I can put magazines in and out without a problem, I can hit the magazine release, the slide catch is good for me, the trigger is good for me. Now you can start looking into how does the gun point for me. The grip angle is something that varies gun to gun, right? And so when I press that out, I want to make sure that that front sight and the rear sight is falling into my line of sight, okay? Sometimes it's a little bit more training and familiarity. You get kind of used to things, but certainly you want it to be pretty natural, right? Pretty natural. And so this has a good index for me that way. And so this is a good gun for me, all right? Okay, so those are some things that you guys can take a look at. Set up a good budget, right? Set up a training budget, because you want to train with your firearm. And then find one that fits your hand well and that you can operate all of the little bells and whistles single-handedly, and one that you can run the slide with without having to get into a fight. If you can do that stuff, you're going to take tens of thousands and you're immediately going to put that down to like 5 to 10, and then you could go to a gun store and do a little bit of test driving and then find the right one for you. The next big question that I always get is, Nick, what can I do at home to help me prepare to be safe when I have a firearm on me, okay? And a lot of that comes back down to Dryfire, and I'll link it somewhere around here somewhere. I actually have an entire playlist that I used to call the S2 Dryfire Friday. I was putting those out on Fridays. And so we go through a bunch of Dryfire stuff, and this is something that honestly, anybody who's competent with a firearm, like really competent, spends a lot of time dry firing, and then they go reinforce their habits or what they're been working on the range. People who just kind of like it's a crapshoot and they don't really care about that skill, you'll find that they hardly dry fire at all, okay? And so if the really good people are spending time doing some dry fire work, what does that tell you about dry fire work, okay? We swear by it because it's that important. So what is dry fire? Dry fire is I go into a sterile environment. There's no ammo anywhere near my guns. It's obviously not in my gun. I've checked, double checked, triple checked, quadruple checked, had the neighbors come and check, and there's just no ammo there, there's not ammo in the room, that kind of a thing. And we start doing drills, right? And the first ones are really simple. All I want you to do is just get used to operating the firearm. So if I take a firearm and I have an empty magazine, gun's empty, magazine's empty, chamber's empty, breech is empty, okay, so we're good. Can I get the magazine in and out? Can I get the magazine and the slide forward? Can I press that out, get a good trigger press, cycle the gun, release, press again. Take that magazine out, put it back in, slide, press, cycle, release, press. All kinds of different things you can just sit here and do to get yourself familiar with using the firearm. Why? Because the last thing you want to do is try to learn your gun in the middle of a fight. Okay, this stuff has to be subconscious. You can't be thinking about where's that magazine release at, and where's that, the slide lock got locked back, and what am I supposed to do in that kind of. You need to be familiar with all of those things without having to think about them. Okay, I know what happens when I press the trigger and I land on a dead trigger, right, and it's not doing anything. Oh shit, maybe the gun's out of battery. Okay, now it clicks. Okay, and so. It just comes from spending a little bit of time doing that kind of stuff. The other one that you can do, and I tell people to do this all the time, I said this in part 1 too in the first question, one of the biggest things that you have to work on is not influencing the gun with your trigger press, okay? So take a little Post-it and put it up against the wall, all right? Or something about the size of, like, let's just say $50 or so. Stand a good 5 to 10 feet away from it. You don't have to be at, a sniper style, just 5 to 10 feet away from the thing. Take aim on it. Press the trigger nice and slowly and see if the gun moves off of that target. If it's moving left or if it's moving right, then you have adjustments that you need to make. All right, that trigger press needs work. And so, really simple. To sit there and operate the firearm and start practicing those things. Now, is that going to make you into some self-defense expert or any of that kind of stuff? No, but you're learning the foundation of this thing, which is being able to operate the firearm without having to give it a whole lot of conscious effort. You don't have to figure it out on the fly. Be familiar with your firearm. Third most common question that I get is, hey Nick, where should I carry the firearm, or how should I carry the firearm? And honestly, that's it depends. Anatomy really has a big part of it. Your clothing style typically has a lot to do with it too. For me, I wear jeans a lot and hoodies a lot and that kind of stuff. And so, most of my holsters will pretty much work for that. I'm not a slim guy, but I'm certainly not, got too much tactical padding. I choose to carry appendix carry. Okay, and so my firearm fits, directly in the front here. Other people will do a 3 o'clock carry, so it's on the side of their hip, or 9 o'clock if you're lefty, right? Other people will go 4 o'clock, okay? I'm kind of dead against the people who go the small of the back. They have no idea what they're doing, honestly, and that normally gets you in a big trouble. It's like the last place you want to carry. I know plenty of females who carry inside the purse, and I think that's a bad idea too, because if you have a bad guy who's trying to hurt you, the first thing he's doing is snatching that purse and throwing it somewhere else, or just snatching the purse and running. And so not only have you given up your purse, but now you give up your firearm too. Think about that. And so I don't think it's a great way to carry a firearm, but I know plenty of females who do that. I know people who wear suits all day, right? And so maybe carrying in the appendix isn't a great choice for them. They might go outside the waistband on a 4 o'clock carry. Sometimes they'll do like a shoulder holster kind of a thing. And so there's a lot of different options. That being said, before you do anything with your firearm, okay, before you put one round through the chamber, you want to purchase a quality holster, okay? This is one of the first pieces of kit that you're going to interact with in a self-defense situation. It's also going to be literally quite possibly a lifesaver in the sense that you're not going to get negligent discharges. So when you have a firearm, okay, when you have a firearm that fits inside of a holster, it has to do a couple different things. First thing it has to do is it has to cover the trigger guard, okay? You do not want to have clothing and debris falling in place in your trigger guard and accidentally depressing the trigger, okay? You also don't want a holster that allows your finger to stay on the trigger when you go reholster. We see people shoot themselves in the leg all the time when they're trying to either reholster or they're trying to draw from the holster, okay? So you gotta have that discipline in the finger. And so you want to make sure that trigger guard is well covered, that it's not changing shape, that it's not allowing debris in there or allowing clothing and that kind of stuff in there. So that's the first thing that you should always take a look at, all right? Second thing I want you to take a look at is good retention. Good retention means this. Can I shake the gun? Okay? If it's falling out and, as soon as you get walking or jogging or that kind of stuff, the gun's gonna fall out of the holster. And so does it have good retention, all right? And so first one, trigger guard. Second one, retention. Third one, okay, this was a big one, is consistency. When I say consistency, it has to give me a consistent draw from the holster. That's one part of it. But the other part is it remains wherever I place it. So if I put it on my appendix, it doesn't walk its way around all, throughout the day, bouncing around, folding over, all kinds of different stuff. For that purpose, here's the thing that I like. I like all Kydex holsters, 100% Kydex all the way around, okay? I know some people love leather holsters. To me, leather holsters are a no-go. Why? Because I live in Texas. People get hot, it gets sweaty. Leather will absorb some of that, and over time, they get flimsy. They start to change shape. They allow stuff into the trigger guard. So it's not a good one for me. What's the pro side of it? Super comfortable, okay? And so I like Kydex for that purpose. I'm not trying to knock leather holsters. It's just not for me, all right? I know people who have what's called a flashbang holster. This is typically for women, right? The flashbang holster is a holster built into your bra. Not really a big fan for that either, but I guess. I don't like the neoprene ones and that kind of stuff. So there's a whole lot of varieties that are out there that you have to keep in mind, okay? But for me, if I want to match those three things, cover the trigger guard, be good in retention, and then make sure that it stays consistent, not only for the draw, but also, on person, wherever I locate it. Kydex holsters, typically 2 of the clips is what I like. There's other holsters that have 1 clip, 1 fat one like this. And they work just fine. The problem with it is I found they tend to walk a little bit. They move around a lot, all right? And so for me to put it on and leave it on and not worry about it going somewhere, typically the ones with the 2 belt clips are usually a better choice for me, okay? Now, inside the waistband, you'll see this, IWB, means exactly that. That means your holster is getting tucked between your body and the inside of your pants, IWB, okay? Then you have OWB, outside the waistband. That means it's getting attached on the outside of your pants, okay? You might have the wings or the clips that'll go fit in, but the holster itself is staying outside. All right. Why does that matter? Well, depending on what you wear, okay? So that's an important part. I mean, for my ladies out there, if you guys wear dresses all day, where are you gonna do an appendix carry? It's not gonna work for you. You gotta rethink this thing, right? For people who wear suits all day, for people who wear jeans and hoodies all day, that's all stuff that we have to keep in mind. I'll also advise you of this. Find a holster that's 80% of your life, right? 70 to 80%. I wear suits and stuff at times, especially on business trips and that kind of such. And so, not one holster is gonna always work. Sometimes I have to swap the holster. Sometimes I have to swap the whole gun, okay? So don't go cheap. Don't go on Amazon and go buy a holster out of there. They're usually not good, okay? And so find a quality, reputable brand. Bravo Concealment makes decent ones. Black Rhino Concealment, Tier 1 is actually my favorite. There's a bunch of brands that are out there that you guys can kind of sift through. They range anywhere from like $40 all the way up to like $150. So again, that's up to you. You could find ones that allow a magazine Okay, that's an appendix carry. It would sit like this, right? So that way I have a spare magazine as well. And so there's some things that you guys will think about when it comes to holsters, but usually it's kind of a trial and error. Obviously your anatomy, your lifestyle, your clothing, it's all going to make a big difference. Next thing I want to cover for you guys is just building a good habit, okay? And so earlier we talked a little bit about Dryfire, and so this is going to be part to do with that. Now this is a habit that I built for myself. I do this literally every single day before I go anywhere, all right? Before I even leave the house. Most of the times before I leave the bedroom. And so I go in Dryfire mode. I clear the firearm, make sure that there's no ammo anywhere near me, the magazine's out of it. I've already cleared my firearm here for you guys. And I will go through 25 to 50 slow draw from the holster, okay? So I have my firearm on me, right? Holster, firearm. And all I'm doing is just taking my time, going nice and slow. I'm drawing the firearm, I'm taking a sight, press, reset. Back in. Why am I doing that? Well, I live in Texas, okay? Sometimes I'm wearing a hoodie, sometimes I'm in a t-shirt, sometimes I'm in shorts, sometimes I'm in jeans, sometimes I'm in slacks, sometimes I'm going to a business meeting, I'm in a suit, sometimes I'm carrying at the appendix, sometimes I'm carrying over here. Every single day is something different. And what I want to do is build a muscle memory and just be familiar with what I need to do to draw that firearm in case if something happens where I have to protect myself, right? And so purchasing a holster doesn't help you. You have to learn how to work with that holster at all points in time, okay? It's a piece of kit. It's not magic. And so you have to work it. And so I get in the habit of spending 25 to 50 reps every single day of just drawing from the holster before I leave the house. One of the things that I'll point something out is this. I live in Texas, but I grew up in Chicago, right? And I go back to Chicago pretty often on business, for family, all kinds of stuff. And so, you know, here it might be a winter day and it's 50 degrees outside. Then I go up north and it's a winter day and it's negative 20. And so I have a coat on, a hoodie underneath that, a t-shirt under that. And so I might have different layers that I have to be able to swim through to get to that holster. But if I went with the one habit that I have from Texas, which is just lift and get my firearm, that's not going to work if I'm wearing an overcoat, right? And so by doing 25 to 50 reps every day, I'm making a conscious effort to say, okay, what do I need to do to be able to get to my firearm today, right? And so that's a habit that I want you guys to follow on a day in, day out basis. And typically what I tell people is this. I want 3 to 5 hours of dry fire training total. And I want anywhere from 250 to 300 draw from the holster in dry fire before you ever decide to ever carry out in public, okay? Hopefully this video helps you guys out. I know there's a lot of information, but I want to get you guys off to the right start and get you a good, educated, competent first step, okay? All right, be safe, be well, and I'll see you guys on the next one.